I started going to gigs. I got into music and bands, and not just singing, but like musical compositions. And
Hmm.
then I started thinking about chords and how did my favorite bands, which were all kind of guitar indie bands at the time, how do they put their songs together? So I picked up guitar and I started a band.
Bringing it backwards. Well, I'm Adam. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, I really want to go to Nashville.
It's amazing. It's snowing a lot right now, to be honest.
Oh my God, amazing. Yeah, I
Yeah,
really want to do some songwriting there. It's such an
it,
amazing place for music.
yeah, it's great here. I'm originally from San Diego, and my family and I moved here a little over 3 years ago. And this is only like in 3 years we had a lot of snow the first year. The second year, like one day it kind of snowed, and then now yesterday and today and this whole week, like my kids got snow. They already canceled school pretty much the whole week. It's just
Oh,
like
really? Oh my
so
God.
much snow. It's crazy.
That was the best. I remember that feeling when you're a kid and they cancel school because of snow. You're like, oh, yes.
You're
Yes.
originally from London, is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
It snows quite a bit there, or not really? I've never been.
It used to snow every year when I was a kid, but climate change, I mean, like the seasons have changed so much in the UK. So it doesn't really snow here anymore. Maybe occasionally. I mean, it snowed the other day, but it didn't settle.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, a few weeks ago I was up in Scotland snowboarding and there's like
Oh, that's
lots of
awesome.
snow there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
but that's like 10 hours drive up north. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
London's a bit different.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. Here, I mean, I wish there's not really hill. I mean, there's a little hill in my backyard, but there's not really many hills because
Mhm.
it's like all powder right now. I mean, it would be like perfect for snowboarding.
So nice. Oh my God.
Yeah. I
So
grew
nice.
up in, like I said, in San Diego. You could drive about an hour and a half to Big Bear, which is like, east of
Uh,
LA. And they'd have to make snow up there. So it was never like that great.
mhm.
And then here I'm like, oh man, I wish I had a snowboard.
So perfect. Do they have to, so do they not really get natural snow at Big Bear?
Very few and far between. I mean, maybe more so now, just because the climate's all crazy. But prior to
Yeah.
that, it was like they would have the seasons, and it would be them making snow if they couldn't really get enough to make the season long. But then you'll have some seasons where it's even longer than anticipated. So it's just
Yeah.
interesting how it changes per year. It seems like
Yeah. Yeah. I really want to snowboard in California, actually.
fun. It's
Um,
cool. You can go snowboarding, and you'll see people snowboarding in like t-shirts or you know what I mean. It's like
oh my
it's
God.
still like 60 degrees, 70 degrees.
That is so funny. Oh my
Yeah, and
God.
then you could drive to the beach in 2 hours after you go snowboarding. It's just such a
Yeah.
wild
You can go
experience.
surf in the morning and snowboard in the afternoon or something.
Yeah, and then skateboard in the evening. It's a great
Exactly.
experience. But yeah, this podcast is about you and your journey in music. But I did read an interview with you, and you say you were talking about skateboarding. Do you skateboard?
I do. I do all three. I'm a big fan of all the board sports. I've got the triptych. Is that what you'd say? The triplet? I don't know. Triple
Yeah,
threat.
triple
Um,
threat. Yeah, there you
triple
go.
threat. Yeah, I love skateboarding. I mean, skateboarding was like the first. Um, I guess that was the gateway, and then I started surfing and snowboarding and a few years after. But yeah, I've been skating for about 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my life as a kid. I mean, I'll still go out now, and I'm almost 40, and it's bad because I don't want to get hurt. But my kids are interested in it, so I'm like, oh, that's something you go to skate park. But yeah, skateboarding was for me from about 10 on was just like my entire life.
Yeah, especially in California. Oh my gosh, it's like
Yeah.
so big there. Um, yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, it's grown in popularity so much, especially like women's skateboarding as well
Oh
has
yeah, it's huge.
yeah, it's massive now. It's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, growing up, I'm trying to think. Forgot her name. She used to skate for Toy Machine back in the day. It was like the one.
Oh, is it Melissa Etheridge? Is that her name?
No, what's her
What's up?
name? Now I got to look it up because it's gonna. ruin my whole day. Hold on. She was in a bunch of Toy Machine videos.
Yeah,
Welcome to
I think,
Hell. Let
do
me
you know
see.
what? I know it's annoying because I think my partner has a poster of her on her wall with the Toy Machine logo. What was her name?
Alyssa Steamer.
Yeah, Alyssa Steamer.
All right,
Okay,
that was gonna drive me nuts this whole interview.
there
So I'm
we
glad
go.
we figured it out.
Yeah.
For skateboarding though, was that something that you got like for me, like the skateboarding videos, the songs were what kind of really drew me into music. Did you have that experience or not really?
Oh, sick. I think, to be honest, I sort of picked up on skateboarding quite late. Like, I didn't do it as a kid. I only started skating when I was 19. Um,
Okay.
so, which is, they say if you start as a kid, you're kind of fearless because your center of gravity is so small. But
Yeah.
starting at 19, you're like fully grown, you're like, oh God,
Yeah, I
the
don't
ground
really
is
want to get
far,
hurt.
the ground is far away. But no, I think, to be honest, I mean, skateboarding, like it was kind of a separate journey to music in a way. Like, I'd already started releasing music, and I think I just wanted something like a hobby that could just fully take my mind off things, because, with music, like my whole life was music.
Mhm.
And I think I just had this moment where I was like, whoa, okay, now it's my like full-time job. I feel like I need something that's going to give me a break from this. And like, you know, it's not healthy to just be like music 24/7. Some people would argue against that, but I don't think so. But
Okay, that's yeah. So it
um,
was more of like a separate hobby to have instead of something
yeah,
that you started and then got into music later.
yeah, it was just a separate thing, and I just kind of I found it through different friends who said they started skateboarding, and I think I started skating at the time where girl skating, women skateboarding was really like growing in London, but it was still, I mean, I remember going to girls' nights at some big like skate parks. Like there's a big skate park called Bay 66 in London, which used to be like the PlayStation skate park, I think.
Oh wow, maybe where they did like the Tony Hawk games or something.
It's like a big famous one. Yeah, it's been featured in a lot of like video games
Videos.
movies and
Yeah.
stuff. And yeah, they did a girls' night. And I remember like when I started skating, there would be like, I mean, this massive skate park, there'd be like 10 girls there. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, and I went last year to one, and there were like 100+ girls there. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, just in the last, like 5 years, it's like blown up, which is so exciting because, I think I got into it so late because I guess I'd always seen it as like a boys thing, and it was like the
Yeah.
idea of going to a skate park was so intimidating. So it's so good that there's like a bigger community there now.
Yeah, that's amazing to go from like 10 to 100. I mean, wow.
It's crazy, yeah, literally.
That's
So
so cool. So you grew up in London, born and raised there?
yes, yeah, born and raised.
And did I read that your parents are both actors? So you come from pretty
Yeah,
creative, artistic household, sounds.
my whole it's hard to find a member of my family, extended and close, that's not in acting.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, like literally so many. Me. Rookie error, phone is not on silent.
Oh,
Um,
good.
yeah, I mean, the so many, and I think it came from it's even a few generations back. My grandparents were actors as well. Like, and yeah, there's just like it's just been always been a part of my life. And I think I think when I went into school and everyone else's parents did, worked in an office or was a
Yeah.
dentist, lawyer, and then I was like, huh, maybe this isn't normal. Maybe not everyone's parents go off and, do a play in the evening. Um, yeah, it was really cool. Like, and it's funny because I don't know, I never thought of acting as creative, which is so crazy to me now. But I just thought, oh, they just read lines and, you know, become someone else. That's not creative. Um, and so when I got into music, I was like, I guess I'm the creative one. I was um so up my own ass about it. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm so grateful, and they definitely inspired me, like performing being like a normal thing.
Mhm.
uh, in,
Were they
in
more support? I mean, were they more supportive of your choice as far as being a musician maybe, instead of, like, if your parents were, like you said, a dentist and a lawyer, went to, like, a 9 to 5, being more like, "Oh, you need to go to college and do this and then have this plan and have more of a stability." Were they more supportive of, "Oh, she's gonna be a singer or a musician, like, that's awesome," or more supportive of that path in your life, you feel?
Weirdly, no.
Oh.
I think now they are, but I think they were really scared because the acting industry, the creative industries are brutal, and I think for them, their careers, 1 year they'd have like a TV show and a play and a movie, and it would be like going great, and then the next year, like there would be nothing, and that we'd be struggling. So it's kind of like, I think they were worried about the sort of like fickle, unpredictable nature of like music, acting, anything, creative or freelance.
Yeah, there's
Um,
not as much stability if you had, like, a job
so I
as
think
a
they
whatever
were,
accountant
yeah,
or something.
right. I mean, they said that they said that so many times to me. They were like, why can't you just be an accountant like that?
Really? How random.
Yeah, they were like, look, go to university, and get a job that's going to be stable. Trust me, like it's stressful, but I think once you've decided your passion lies somewhere, it's pretty hard to be dissuaded from doing it. So I went ahead and did it anyway. But yeah, they came around.
Yeah,
It came,
yeah.
but and like obviously at the time, I was really angry at them because I was like, why can't you just support me? But I understand, if yeah, if I one day have kids, I'll probably be scared, for them knowing how up and down it is being in an industry that's just completely unpredictable. And, especially when it comes to like mental health and how that is impacted by it all. Like it definitely, um, it's not easy. But I think, well, okay, if I'd gone been an accountant, I wouldn't have been happy. So
Right, exactly. You're like, you maybe have the stability, but you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is the worst. I gotta go here every day," and yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that would be
wouldn't be fulfilled.
difficult.
Mm.
What about as far for you? I'm curious. I want to talk to you about how you got into music, but was acting anything that you thought that, or tried to pursue early on, just because was it what your parents were doing, or did they want you to maybe put you in acting lessons or anything like that?
I mean, they were very kind of like, when I was a kid, whatever you're drawn to, like there were lots of like free classes through my primary school. I guess that's like elementary, right?
Hmm.
You're a kid. And there were like music lessons that you could sign up to and dance lessons and then sports stuff. So I mean, I just loved everything really. I just loved trying everything out. But I think definitely I loved being in the school play. And from that, I went on to do some kind of weekend, like play, singing, dancing, sort of like classes. But I was always drawn to the singing part more. I loved, the musical element. And I mean, acting, I definitely feel like every kid, regardless of if your family are in the acting business or not, every kid is like, I want to be a movie star at
Right, of
some
course.
point. So I feel like I had the like, I don't know, year of that maybe when I was like 9 or 10. But I just loved music and I loved singing, and performing was a part of that. But I think um I just loved like telling stories as well. So later on as a teenager, I was really like, my favorite subject was actually like English and English
Mm.
lit, because I loved poetry and writing, like how people express the words they choose to explain and tell stories. I loved that.
Yeah, and with music and songwriting, was that something like, did you pick up guitar or something early on and kinda use that as, like, a tool to help with your songwriting, or when did you start playing? I know you played guitar, right, in your first band?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I picked up guitar and played it so badly. I don't know how I got away with playing actual gigs to people with guitar. I mean, I play guitar now, but still, you know, I just get by. Um, it's kind of shocking. I mean, honestly, the I wish I could have the confidence that I clearly had when I was 14 and just picked up a guitar and was like, I can play this. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, I guess, but there was just that determination. I was like, I had this moment. I started going to gigs. I got into music and bands, and not just singing, but like musical compositions. And
Mm.
then I started thinking about chords and how did my favorite bands, which were all kind of guitar indie bands at the time, how do they put their songs together? So I picked up guitar and I started a band with some musician friends, and um, that was so fun. But I think ultimately I knew that, I love music, I love the composition of it, but I knew the main thing I always wanted to do and my main goal was always to be a storyteller. And that was through songwriting and the lyrics. And they're a big part of my music,
Well,
today.
yeah, you're a fantastic songwriter and lyricist. I mean, your lyrics are really, really, really good. With that, like, were you writing the music or writing the lyrics for the band that you played in first?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I think I was so ultimately the other band members left because I think I was doing everything. And
Oh,
they
it was
were
became
like,
your band.
why are we here? I think I was just so much of a control freak, which makes sense that I went solo because I think, I I would just have been a nightmare to be in a band with. Kudos to them for sticking it out for like a year. I just, I wanted to write all the songs. I wanted to tell my stories, and I wanted to, I think also I had this determination. I was like, can we rehearse like every day? They were like,
Yeah.
we have jobs like and exams and stuff. I was like, but music. So I thought, right, I'm just gonna do it for
I feel
myself.
like I've heard that before. I mean, it must be difficult for bands to stay. You need to find, 3, 4, 5 people that have the same drive that are like,
Mhm.
this is it. This is what I want to do forever. And if you're the only one really in that mindset, like, there's nothing else. This is just, this is what I want to do. Yeah, I could see how it would be hard to not just be like, what, I'm going to do this on my own because not everyone, at least that I'm surrounded with currently, wants this as much as I do.
Oh my God, fully. I mean, when I see bands who, I mean, so many everywhere, bands who are, killing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did you get through those early stages where, you know, you're not making any money from it? It's purely like you're just grinding it out for the passion for so
Hmm.
long. And even, as a solo artist, like it's a lot it you know you end up being able to make it a part-time or a full-time thing way quicker because if you get paid for a show it goes to you, whereas if you're in a
Right.
band, if there's five of you, you have to split it between the five of you. And then I think it's amazing when bands like make it work. um it's so impressive because also, live, like for so many years, for the first probably 5 years of my career, I was just playing me and a DJ because I couldn't afford to have any other musicians on stage because, it's so expensive to
Hmm.
travel and, pay everyone and put them in hotels and feed them. That it was like, okay,
Right.
just do it me and a DJ. Sometimes it would just be me with track because I was like, if I bring someone to do this, then I'm just not going to make anything from this. Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, when I see full bands, I just have so much respect for that because
Right.
that's
But I
really.
mean, even as as a solo artist, to just have the drive and to pursue this is it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, a lot of no's and a lot of, like you said, shows where you're making nothing, maybe, or there's 5 people that show up because you haven't got to that level yet. and then to
Mhm.
be able to keep going and be like, okay, yeah, there's 10 people, but hopefully next time I come back to this town or play a show here, there'll be 20 or, more as you kind of build.
Oh my gosh, fully. I mean, I remember in my first band, we were teenagers, so, ripe to being ripped off by people in the industry. I remember doing stuff like paying to play, which blows my mind that that's even still a
That's
thing
still a
somehow.
big thing. You have to get, if you don't bring 100 people, then you're not playing the show tonight. Like that's wild.
Wild, and like promoters whose job is in the title promote to like your job to promote the show will be like, well, you can pay to do the show and then you can promote it and sell the tickets back. It's like, what? And I remember doing that. I think we only did it once. Um, and then I think maybe a friend of mine who was in the industry, or maybe even someone at my like music school, was like, dude, don't do that. That's ridiculous. You're the artist. Someone should, be paying you to perform. Uh,
Right.
yeah, crazy.
When did you go to music school? Is that after, high school, or was it in the
Yeah,
university? Okay.
yeah. So I in the UK, I don't know how it works in the US exactly, but in the UK, up until 16, they might have changed it since I was in school. I don't know. I
Mhm.
graduated high school like 10 years ago, so I don't know.
Okay.
But they when I was in school, it was like up until the age of 16, you have to be in education, and then you can decide either you do another 2 years before then college, or you just can go get a job, or you can do like 2 years of basically kind of pre-college, not the same like exams or qualifications as if you're going to go do like science or maths or English. But
Mhm.
if you want to do something creative, then you can go to like a specific school for that and do those 2 years in that. So I decided to go
That's
to a
awesome.
music school. Yeah, it was really cool, and I went to a really cool music school, um and it was great because I was just surrounded by creative people making music. That's where I made some of my first music as like a solo artist, because I just met so many different producers and people who wanted to be, within this school, there were people who wanted to be, you know, drummers, guitarists, pianists, producers, promoters, managers. So it was like a whole kind of mini music industry.
Mhm.
And it was really fun. And from that school, they had some industry people coming in and doing talks and stuff, and that's where I met my first manager. And after a year of being in the school, I signed my first record deal, so I left after a year. uh,
Wow. Was that based off a song that did well, or or just somebody or the
um
label believed in what you were up to, or
yeah, I'd started self-releasing music from, I suppose, yeah, the age of 17, almost 18. And then I signed, yeah, a label. Like I was doing so many shows, just open mics, and like, I just rock up with an iPod and play my song, and or it'd be downloaded as an MP3 on my phone. And um, there were definitely a few times where I got turned away because they were like, "You need a real instrument." I was like, but I've got some beats on my phone, please. And I just, I'd play shows 3 times a week. I go to music college, and then which was 5 days a week, full time, and then in the evening, a lot of the time I just Google like open mics tonight, London, and I just go on my own to some random pub or tiny venue or something, and there'd be like 10 people there, and I just perform. And I think that's kind of how I cut my teeth performing, really, because I just got used to, okay, there might be 2 people there, um, there might be 30 people there. The crowd might love it, the crowd might hate it and be talking over you. But I just gave it everything every time, because I was like, what if, this show, there's someone in the crowd who can, connect me with someone, or maybe it was kind of a desperation in a way, but also I think there was like I was excited to do it, but there was also this sort of anxiety weirdly driving me, which was like,
Yeah.
you don't go tonight, and what if that's the night where there's some massive manager? So I was like, I'm just gonna go. And I mean, these shows, I just started inviting every network, I'd go network every industry person I met. I'd say, I'm doing a show tomorrow, I'm doing a show here, do a show here. And I remember my A&R at my label came to this show I did at this tiny bar that you could fit about 15 people in. And I was under 18, so I wasn't even allowed in legally, but I had this fake ID. And I'd just be like, let me in. And yeah, the stage was so small, I just kind of used the bar as the stage. And I remember my A&R came to that, and he afterwards he was like, that was the weirdest show I've ever been to, but you were great. um yeah, that's kind of that was the how I hustled my way during music college.
Yeah, and then, I mean, to sign a record deal that early, I mean, it sounds like you were 17 and you get signed to a label. That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think when I signed, I just turned 18. It was like just after my
Okay.
18th birthday. And um yeah, I mean, it is amazing, like when I look back at that, knowing just there was so much ahead, and a lot of amazing stuff ahead, a lot of really bad stuff ahead. And I was like so like wide-eyed and ready for it. And I don't know, I kind of just, I don't know, there's like a bittersweet feeling about it, really, because I
Mhm.
think that record deal that I signed actually ended up really not being the right one for me. I felt very creatively constricted, and I think I really could have done with being signed to a developing deal, or with a team who were more about just nurturing my project, instead
Mhm.
of I basically was signed, and it was like, you have to be in the top 10 within the next year or this has failed. That was kind of the attitude. And that
Oh,
really
wow.
crushed my spirit for a little bit. So
I
yeah.
would imagine, yeah, you get signed to this label and you're like, "Okay, this is gonna be awesome," and then maybe you're not getting the support you anticipated having, or if you don't
Mhm.
have the hit that people are looking for, then that's it. What, did they just kinda shelve you, or did you get I know you ended up eventually
Yeah.
getting dropped, which was probably the best thing that ever happened to you, if you
Oh my
can
God,
you
it
can
was.
bend it
It
now,
was. Yeah.
but,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think, to be honest, I mean, I hope that, and I can see a slight shift happening in the music industry. But I think around the time when I was signed, and there is still this obsession, but there was a big obsession about being like younger and younger and younger. And I think it was kind of around the time that Billie Eilish was really popping off, and there was this obsession with like teenagers blowing up, and this feeling
Mhm.
of like, if you are over 18, you're old already. And I had a lot of friends who would lie about their age. They'd say they were younger than they were, because they thought, oh my God, I'm in my 20s now. I'm in my mid 20s now. That's too old. I'm past my time.
Yeah, I aged out at 20.
Aged out. And I think that pressure, I'd like to think that it is changing, because there are a lot more artists who are, mainstream artists who are in their 30s and
Right,
only just blowing up, and even later. And I think that's really cool, because I always found it strange how, I'd say, music or acting, or sort of like creative professions, where you're like the face of something, it's on a
right.
platform or in the spotlight. Like any other profession, if you went to a doctor and asked them like, how long have you been doing this for? And they said, oh, a year, you'd be like, stay away from me. I'm not going to
Right.
like, you clearly don't know what you're doing. Whereas in music, I think there's this feeling of like, oh, if you've been doing it for a long time, then, oh, maybe maybe you're kind of irrelevant now. Maybe, you're not so new and fresh. And and there's this obsession with this like new fresh thing. Whereas, I don't know, I think when artists have been releasing music for such a long time, and they've been honing their craft, and they're so confident in themselves, and they've really landed at a place where their sense of self is radiant. I love that. I mean, if you look at like an artist who's having a real moment right now is Mitski, and she's been
Mm-hmm.
releasing music for over a decade. And this album now, I don't know if it feels like maybe it's her sixth album, fifth album or something. And this is her first, I think she just had her first like Billboard charting song. I think that's amazing, because it's like, wow, there's people, especially when you like discover an artist, to be able to say, oh my gosh, she has this like amazing narrative, 10 years of music that I can delve into. And then the people who have been listening since the beginning have followed her whole journey. And I don't know, I think that's really special.
No, I 100% agree with that. I mean, look, I'm thinking like Portugal the Man had like 5 albums out before that one massive hit happened for him.
Fully, yeah.
Or you have but even back to like new artists that if you have a song, especially, pandemic, even into now, I guess, where an artist would have the one big song that happened on TikTok. And
Right.
then you're like, oh, wow, this song's awesome. And then you go to their discography on Spotify and there's like one other song that has like no
Yeah.
plays. And you're like, okay, well, I would imagine a lot of pressure on that person being like, okay, now I'm in the spotlight. Can I do this again? Is this really, something I'm going to be able to do? Whereas if you have a bunch of a catalog of songs that you've already been doing and you've been working on it for years, then it might become a little easier to be like, oh, okay, now this person has all these other songs, and then we can move forward with this
Mm,
artist.
yeah, fully. I mean, I think, it's one of those things where whatever whatever situation you're in, there's always going to be something, some kind of pressure.
Sure.
Like I'm very, I like in my songs, I wear my heart on my sleeve online as well. And I remember posting something, I think at the end of 2022, I'd had quite a rough year, personally. And I think I'd also just been really struggling with my identity as an artist and musically, and thinking, where do I go next? What's what's my sound? What am I trying to say? And feeling like, this sort of pressure from mostly myself, but also, people at, labels or PR are kind of being like, so what is girly? And I just had this feeling where I was like, I don't know, I don't know who I am. And I posted something about it, and um, a friend of mine, who's an amazing artist called LP, who's had huge success.
Oh, I've had LP on my show. She's
She's
yeah, amazing.
incredible person, incredible presence as well. Like, and I remember she reached out and she said, I hope this isn't me being presumptuous, or I'm not trying to come off as sort of patronizing, or listen here, kid, this is, but she said, like, I just wanted to let you know that I've been here, because I think I posted a video of me like crying or just being like, fuck this industry, you
Right,
know.
right.
And she was like, look, I've been there 1,000 times in my career, and you know it kind of never there never stops being something that's making you go, oh my gosh, why? And she said, once, before you've had a hit song, you have this pressure to have a hit song, and then once you've had a hit song, then there's, okay, well, when's the next one coming? And then, you know once you've had a good 5 years, then everyone's thinking, well, how long is this going to last? Is it going to become 10 years? Is this going to be, like a long surviving artist, or are they going to die off? Or, she was basically saying, like, you just have to enjoy the process,
Mhm.
because there's always going to be something that you could be doing better, or something that, you know, you haven't quite achieved yet, or, you know, and
Yeah.
it was so funny, you know, hearing her say, yeah, well, once you have a hit, then everyone's asking when's the next one. It's like, oh my God, like it's crazy. And I definitely had to kind of check myself in the past and think, wait, you know, I'm like, oh, but I really want my song to be played on that radio station, or I want to have this many people come to my show. And then I'm like, but remember when you wanted this many people to come to your show? Like, remember when you wanted this radio station to play, and it's happened. So, you know, appreciate the wins.
Right. That's gotta be hard. I mean, I would imagine that's hard too. In any creative aspect, it's like, "Oh, this song, I'll never get 100,000 plays on a song," and then it happens, and it's, "I'll never get 1,000,000. Well, how come
Yeah.
this song didn't get 5,000,000?" Yeah, it's like, as you progress, the bar keeps getting set higher and higher and higher.
Mm-hmm.
Um
100%. Yeah, you move your own goalposts, don't you? You're like, woo.
Yeah, it's not, "Okay, I got 1,000,000, now I'm done. I can hang up the
Yeah.
cleats, I'm out." It's like, now it's
I'm
trying to get
happy.
5. Um,
Yeah,
it's
fully.
it so you're big the biggest song, at least on Spotify for you, with "More Than a Friend," that was something that had came was that around that time period? Like, that song comes out, you have this big moment, and it's okay, is that around the time that put the video out, that LP kinda reached out to you, or was it a little bit
Yeah,
after that?
so yeah, More Than a Friend came out. It's interesting because More Than a Friend came out in the summer of 2021. And
Mhm.
it didn't do anything. Like it, you know, my existent fans loved it. You know, I got good feedback. I went on a tour that was really, really fun. That was like my first independently funded tour around that EP, and it was really great. And then it was kind of at the beginning of 2022, the video and the song just started to pick up, and I had this just huge over the whole kind of 2022, this huge growth in fans and people who are coming to the shows, and that song just blew up on, you know, on streaming sites and on TikTok. And it's so crazy because it just happened very gradually, but now I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, this song is huge, and it has changed my life. And I think, yeah, I think it was kind of trying to, when I realized, okay, this song has been huge, how do I make one that's bigger? How do I follow this up? And
Right.
I think then it's I think I had to almost think, okay, let me not go into the studio thinking, how do I make a song bigger than More Than a Friend? Let me go into the studio and just think, why did I start making music in the first place? It's because I was a teenager who felt out of place everywhere I went, and,
Uh-huh.
you know, needed an escape from school. I really didn't enjoy school. I didn't feel like I was bullied. I didn't feel like I sort of fit in there. And then I was also questioning so many things about my sexuality and my place on this earth, as you do when you're a teenager. And
Mhm.
you know, and that's why. And then gigs and making music and going to the rehearsal studios and playing with my band became just everything switched off. And I sort of rediscovered that. And so this album that's coming out later this year, all of the songs on this album were, I didn't go in to make any of these songs thinking, how do I make a song that's going to get this many streams? How do I make a song that's going to go big on TikTok or get played on this radio? I just was like, I'm going to write music that makes me feel like I'm processing what's my experiences, and is going to make me feel like, okay, yeah, I got it all out. I said it all, you know. Um, and
So it's not sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no, it's all good. No, most of the songs on this record, I actually remember leaving the studio and thinking, that was a pile of shit. Like, that's not going to get anywhere. um, and I didn't like most of them. afterwards, and I just kind of like left them to gather dust for a few months, and then listened back to them and thought, oh my God, I love this. So that also taught me to sort of sometimes not listen to my own head.
No, sure. I mean, the songs that I've heard off this album are really, really cool. I mean, the Matriarchy is the first song you put out, which is like the title track of the album. And with this album going into it, it's your second one. The first one you know put out on a record label, and you've done a lot since then, obviously. Was it real quick just to back up to that? I'm just curious. Was it hard to continue to go forward after losing the label? Were you like, am I going to be able to keep like, is this worth keep continuing?
Yeah, I mean, it's the timing was, I guess, from the outside, it looked like nightmare timing, but it actually ended up being amazing because I was dropped not long before COVID happened. And so
Oh
I had,
wow.
yeah, and I had a few months to sort of process. I mean, in the end, I ended up taking a year off out of releasing music at all.
Hmm.
Um, but I was still doing shows and I was still active online and stuff. And basically during COVID, I, like a lot of people, I had to move out of my apartment. I had to go back and live with my family. And it actually sort of gave me weirdly this time to reflect on everything. I mean, a lot
Hmm.
of people were reflecting, but it was good reflection for me. Um, and I actually was kind of prepared to just do it all independently and figure it out. And that's when I met the A&R of the label I'm with now, which is an independent label.
Hmm.
And I played her some demos and she loved them. And she changed my life because she believed in me. I think a lot of the time labels will see an artist who's been dropped and kind of, you know, think, okay,
Yeah,
dismiss you.
their time is over. Yeah.
Right. And that's why I love working with the label I'm at now because they care about music and they care, it's not just about it being a business. It's about the passion. And that's the only people I'll work with now in any respect, in my touring, my
Hmm.
management, my creative direction, my label. Like everyone has to be in it because they love the music and the message. And the I don't think the pressure really creates a good environment or a good mental headspace.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And so going from what I've read in your press releases about this album, this was the most vulnerable you've been going in, like not even going into the album, but lyrically. Or tell me about that. Was that just something where you were kind of saying earlier you didn't want to go in to try to write the next hit or TikTok song? It was just, I'm gonna go in and what, put it all out there and see what happens?
Yeah. I mean, I wrote this album. Everything was written within a space of 6 months, and um, I I was just going through it. I'd had quite a big breakup, which is quite useful when you're trying to write an album. Actually, I'd had quite a big breakup, and I was struggling a lot with identity and with, you know, the this sort of inner pressure to figure out who am I as an artist, as a person, as sort of quarter life crisis vibes, I guess. And all of these songs, I didn't go into any of the studio sessions thinking I'm writing for my album. It was actually only decided after they were all written that I knew that they all meshed, they all meant something together because they were all written within this time period. And um, it felt like the same voice, it felt like the same kind of version of me that was writing them, but they only became an album after they were all written, which I really like because it meant there wasn't that pressure of, okay, we got to write some bangers for the album, or we've got to do this, or this will be an album track, this will be a single. It was just writing songs for the sake of writing songs, to enjoy. A lot of them I didn't even go in to write them thinking they would ever be released, which was quite a freeing feeling, really.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, not many people that I've spoke to have had that experience where it's like, I'm just gonna go write a bunch of songs, and then at the end, it's wow, these are all, yeah, like you said, in the same voice. They could all be put together, and then oh, it looks like I have an album
Yeah.
here.
Out comes an album.
Was it a therapeutic process this time around, or is it always for you writing songs or getting, you know, getting
Yeah,
out?
writing songs is always therapeutic for me. Yeah, I mean that's always just been why I've written them.
Mhm.
Because they are like, I'm also I'm big on journaling. Um, and I think songs is just another form of journaling for me, really. It's like,
Mhm.
let me get everything, let me word vomit, let me emotion vomit out into something and try and make sense of what I'm feeling and who I am.
Love that. I have a couple more questions for you, especially about this album. You said earlier that you would go into the studio, write a song, and then leave and be like, "Oh, that was, that wasn't good." How when you go, was it when you went back to the studio the next time and kind of revisit it that you were like, "Oh, wow, like this is actually really good," and then how do you was that the experience you had, or kind of tell me about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I keep all of my every song I've ever written. I keep the file, the demo file, in a Dropbox folder. So I have
Mhm.
this Dropbox folder of every song I've ever written because,
Wow.
yeah, which I feel very thankful for because there are so many, and I'll revisit them, and sometimes I have a Patreon of like super fans, and
Oh, that's
sometimes,
cool.
yeah, and they're amazing. And I have a Discord, and it's all kind of linked with these amazing, super fans. Some of them have been around since I started releasing music, and they occasionally I'll leak one of these demos, and it'll be a demo from years ago that I forgot even existed, um and has just been gathering dust basically forever. And I love revisiting them. But I mean, with the album, it was the same process. Like I'd even if I think a song is, you know, not worthy of my time, I'll still say, okay, let's bounce the demo. I'll put it in this folder, whatever. So I always have that to go back to. And yeah, I mean, it was quite magical, really, because I remember going through a lot of these demos, and light bulbs were just going off. Light bulbs were going off. Light bulbs were turning on. Fireworks were going off. Like, no, yeah, lights were going on. Um, Thinking, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Hey, this sounds kind of like this. They will go together. This tells a story. And um, yeah, it's really exciting listening to a song that you're expecting to be bad, and it's great.
Right, right. Have you ever utilized your Patreon as like, as maybe for this album, sharing a demo and being like thinking, oh, maybe is this going to be good enough to make the like kind
I
of
did,
use them as a testing ground, like a focus group?
yeah. I not for this album. I didn't. I kept this album under wraps, very under wraps. But the my previous couple EPs, um, I did some live streams where I would play like 30 seconds and say I wrote this recently. And actually, it's a funny story, but my song Imposter Syndrome, which came out on my previous EP,
Uh huh.
that was a song from, a few years ago that had kind of, like a lot of them, gathered dust in the folder. And I remember doing a live stream for some fans, and I played that song, and everyone was freaking out and loving it. And my manager tuned into that live stream, which was so random because he didn't usually. Um, and he heard the song, and he was like, "We should release this. This is amazing." And we ended up releasing it. So yeah, it's definitely my fans are definitely focus groups for a lot of stuff that I do.
That's awesome. Was there a song going into this? You also said earlier about you went in writing a song, not even like knowing or thinking it might make the album. Was there any of the songs in those sessions that did eventually, like, going in like, "Oh, I don't think," leaving or going into it not thinking like, this will never make the cut," or this is just kind of me getting out these feelings. And did you have those moments where maybe some of those songs made it onto your album, or a lot of them did, or none of them
My
did?
gosh, so many of them. So
Oh
many.
wow.
Yeah, I mean yeah, so many. Um the next song that I'm releasing this month called Be With Me. I remember writing that and feeling like, you know what, I had a fun day. I wrote a song with some friends. I'm glad of the experience, but this song's never going to see the light of day. And yeah, I mean there are actually probably half the album is songs that initially I didn't like, or I didn't not connect with, but I just dismissed. And I think that says more about where my mind was at when I was writing a lot of these songs. Is, you know, I my self-esteem was very low. I didn't believe in what I was making, which weirdly I think the reason why a lot of the songs turned out so amazing is because, in my opinion, amazing, um, is that I just sort of released that pressure. I was like, okay, well, whatever. I'll just write. Um, yeah.
And was there a moment, or is there a song on the album that you're like, "Ah, I don't know, this might be a little bit too vulnerable. Like, I don't know if I should put it out," or
No, I think vulnerability is something that I've always been comfortable with. And I think I I can be thankful to probably my parents for that, because they're they're actors that they were always, you know, giving so much to the parts that they were in, and they were always you know, we my family, and I'm very thankful as a family that, you know, we talk about everything, and we share our emotions. And I think, you know, I remember my grandma as well when I was a kid, just teaching me how vulnerability is powerful. And I think I feel very, very lucky that I kind of grew up feeling that. And I definitely, you know, that was almost squashed out in high school, because going into high school being like, vulnerability is powerful, people are going to crush that really
oh,
quick.
sure, sure.
People are going to say vulnerability means you're a target.
Right,
But
that means I have all this ammunition against you now.
yeah, exactly. Find the weak ones. But I no, I mean, you know, I think music kind of, you know, when I got into my favorite artists, you know, when I started listening to music and becoming obsessed with bands and going to shows, you know, so much of the music I loved was super vulnerable and was really honest and open. And you know, I really, music's saved me, you know, in many ways. And making music, but also just being a music fan, which I know is, you know, is the same for so many people. I mean, that's why music's so powerful, because, you know, it makes you feel less alone. So I think that's what I've always wanted to do with my music, is if I'm 100% truthful and I say exactly how I'm feeling, and, you know, maybe someone will listen to this song who's feeling the same way and feel less alone.
I love that. I love that. And I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for
Thank
doing
you.
this. I have one more question, but just want to comment on your tour, because you're playing the Troubadour, which is one of my favorite venues, and that's kind of the first show, right, of the tour. You're doing that show, and I think it's Texas and some others, and then playing a lot in the UK as well.
Yeah, yeah. So the Matriarchy tour, which is going to the US, Canada, Europe, UK. We're also going to Australia and New Zealand, which I'm very excited about.
Oh wow, you're
Hasn't
what,
been-
part Australian, right?
I'm half Australian, so I'm very stoked for that.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. The Troubadour, there's so many venues on this tour that I've wanted to play for so long. The Troubadour in LA is one of them. The Bowery Ballroom in New York is another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I mean, I love playing in the US. The fans just go nuts. It's so good. It's so good. Everyone's just so lovely and excited, and me and my whole crew always feel so welcome.
Awesome. My last question for you before I let you go today. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oh my gosh. I think I'd say, it's so interesting because obviously from when in such a short time, the music industry has changed so much. Like but when I first started releasing music, TikTok did not exist, which I guess sometimes makes me feel like, how old am I? But then I'm like, it has only become a thing in the last 3 or 4 years, like, the
Right.
pandemic, kind of when TikTok blew up. And it's changed the music industry so quickly, and everyone's kind of been like chasing, trying to catch up with it. But I think there are some things that will never change, whatever technology, does, and however music distribution changes. Um, and that's just trust that whatever you're making and what you're saying is special and is important. And I think trying to follow trends, or like, but music and creativity shouldn't sort of try and fit a mold, um a mold for success, like. And I think also just a big thing is really try and enjoy the journey, because there are I feel like whole years of my life and my music journey that I wish I could go back and just enjoy the moment, because I spent so much time worrying about what about this and what about this and what's going to happen in the future and la la la. And like, I think, when you're so passionate and you're enjoying the journey, people can see that, it gives out an aura, an energy. But then on like a more practical note, instead of this like wishy-washy advice, I think
That's great advice.
I think also, talk to people, collaborate with people, you know, like make stuff with everyone that you want to, and play shows, and just get out there, really. I mean, that's how, then everything just sort of starts to snowball. It's like a butterfly effect, really.
Bringing it backwards.